Okay, hello everybody. We've got a bit of a change in my weekly video. This week I am joined by my darling friend Louise Paterson, who's community midwife and feeding specialist, whether it's breastfeeding or bottle feeding, she's your go-to lady. And Louise, I hang out with every Tuesday at our Frankston South drop-in group and the Rye drop-in group once a month. And every week we have these amazing chats with wonderful parents and each other if there's nobody there. And in recent weeks, we've thought, wouldn't it be nice to just capture some of these chats because we have some brilliant ideas, don't we?
We do. I
So,
always say we go together like cheese and biscuits.
cheesy biscuits, yeah, that's right. Do you want to just tell people who haven't met your lovely self
Yeah.
a little bit about you know, your background and how we
So,
came to know each other so well?
yeah. So look, I've been a community midwife in UK for many years, and then I came here, worked in the Monash for a few years in the lovely birth centre. And then 3 years after that, I decided, you know what, I really want to get back out in that community again, because that's always been my love and my passion. And so now I'm a practitioner midwife with Medicare, working in the antenatal and postnatal continuity of care sector, and really being postnatal one of my most, or it really is a passion of mine. And then breastfeeding obviously came alongside that, and over the last few years I've specialized more, so that I can help women more with more complex issues. And the reason why it is my passion is that we know that being able to breastfeed your baby, it's an intrinsic and biological and psychologically need to be able to do that. You know, for a woman to be able to sustain and nurture her baby, it brings along so many benefits. You've got that profound connection, which is so important for a mother and baby. And plus, it really just sets her up with that feeling of self-esteem and really, empowerment. So why would you not want to help mothers to be rewarded with those feelings? And so that's why I actually really feel so passionate about getting the message out there, good support for breastfeeding, because it's so critical. And if you time it right as early as possible, then you can help things go a little bit more smoothly. But you can
Yeah.
help out at any stage. And that's why we run the drop in, because we want to get to as many people as possible. We don't want any financial barriers in the way. As we know, over the last 2 years alone, we've seen just over 500 mums, which is amazing. And so, and it's also not just beneficial for it's beneficial for mums, but it's also beneficial for the babies. So we are also the baby's advocate, and we want babies to be able to feed without struggling, with restrictions or with tightness, not being comfortable at the breast, not being able to transfer enough milk. We want to really be able to get in there and help with that too, so that both mother and baby, the dyad as we call them, they can work and function beautifully together, and they both get the rewards. That's why we're both now, as you know, both such an advocate for body work as well.
And it's all so interlinked, isn't it? The feeding aspect, the sleep, and it's almost like we can't work without each other now, can we?
We can't. And it's the same with the body work, really. Everybody has their little place in the puzzle, a part of the puzzle. And,
Particularly
and
with smaller babies, right? Particularly with those younger ones that we see most often. They're the
yes,
ones where we kind of need to refer to each other to see, well, and especially because we
exactly.
only see people for a short period of time in that drop-in setting.
Mm.
It sometimes needs all our eyes to be able to see what the real issue is. I think a lot of people come thinking they've got a sleep issue, and it actually turns out that it's deeper rooted than that.
I mean, I love that they all come for a sleep issue, but then we break it down, and half the time we've got to look at the feeding first, because that's part of the reason why these babies are not sleeping. So it's fabulous though, isn't it, having us both there, because we can feed off one another. And you often say to me, and I say to you, look, can you come and talk to this mum, and then vice versa. I'll
Mm.
I'll pop in and look at the feeding as well. And it's just nice that we're both there and able to do it on the spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, well, pretty much when anybody walks through the door and they say they've got a baby who is under 4 months
Yeah.
with a sleep issue. Really, I don't think it's a sleep consultant's realm right now. We need to look at the comfort of this baby's body, how effectively they're feeding. Is there any leftover tightness or discomfort from a
Yeah.
difficult birth? Maybe. I know you always ask people about their births, don't you? As
Yes, I
one of
think
your first questions.
it's so critical when you're looking at a feeding issue. You've really got to look at the birth first as well, because often if we start at the birth, then just the way the birth story falls will give you so much information as to how that baby has got to the point where it is now with the feeding. You can usually trace it all back to the birth. You can even go back through pregnancy as well. There's a beautiful mum that told me just recently that her baby was in this really tight, unusually across her womb, not down, up and down like normal, but the baby was across her womb for most of the pregnancy, which is a very, very unusual position to be. Maybe from, from 16, 20, 24 weeks, maybe. But then after that, they should be come more up and down. But this little baby had been right across ways for a long period of time, a funny little breech baby, body first. So if you think about that position that baby would have been curled up in, to then have to try and had a complicated birth, obviously, as well, and then trying to feed after all that, there's definitely going to be problems.
I wonder why that one stayed sideways for so long.
Sometimes it can be get wombs that have a little septum, a little piece, isn't there, that connective tissue in the middle, and it's called a bicornuate uterus, two halves. Sometimes there's fibroids that can cause babies to stay in one position. But all these things are very relevant in the big picture of things. And then when you think, are these babies able to birth normally? They're often not able to birth normally either, and they need either a cesarean or some form of assisted birth. I think as well, we've both learned that if they say they've had an assisted birth, even before seeing what's going on, those poor babies are going to need some body work.
Yeah, because it's quite an insult to their little bodies, isn't it, to be dragged out, really, of where they were comfy. They didn't make their own way out, and that's going to have some sort of impact on them, isn't it?
It's the compression of the tissues, isn't it? Because we know as midwives, both of us, that the skull bones overlap. In spite of all that, these babies that get in really difficult positions, then there's also, that is the skull bones, but the compression of the soft tissues on top of that, that's where the trauma can be done. And then if it's deep enough, it can press on nerves and muscles and things as well. So they're
and
all
in the neck and the shoulders, and then getting into a position for breastfeeding is tricky. So I think today we wanted to talk about some of the common tales that turn up at our drop-in and how very often they are the younger babies. And we thought probably typically between 3 and 6 months we see them most, don't we? That's probably I mean, we do get quite a lot of toddlers as well. But 3 to 6 months, there's quite a big contingent. So do you want to run through what are the things that you're seeing at that stage, and then maybe I'll kind of jump in from a sleep perspective?
Because I think there's two things going on here, isn't there? Because it's a big time of development. It's the time of developmental changes in their body and what they can do, and also particularly in their brain development. I've always been told that if there's growth hormone around, then babies are much more aware, much more awake. And the growth hormone requires them to feed. So I always say it's like having a little voice in their head saying, you must eat, you must eat. So often these little babies, they're just falling off to sleep. Oh, just want to fall asleep. I'm tired. Oh, and then the growth hormone makes them wake up and feed again. That time where they might, you'll talk about this, but the time when they might have bigger naps or whatever, that sort of tails off a little bit, and the naps are shorter.
And people think things are going backwards, don't they? We've got that awful term, sleep regression. Oh, don't get me started on that, but it just sets people up with this massive worry about what's to come. And then suddenly when babies are more hungry and more aware, they just instantly go, oh, it's the regression. Yes. And it kind of makes them feel like they're victims. On it. Yeah.
When really it is just that growth hormone, and we just have to let them ride that through. And the feeding, with a 3 month, they're so bright and full of life, aren't they? And you see them like these little girls we've had recently. You remember those with the little bright eyes? And they're trying to feed, and then something distracts them, and their little heads come, they pull off and look. And so also the changes at that stage is that they might only have one side rather than both breasts. So that's another thing that happens. Mums are worrying about the fact that they're not feeding for very long, and they're feeding very differently. So they might have the one side, and then they try and give them the other side, but they're not interested. And that's not because they're trying to reduce their feeds or they're losing their supply, because if you think about your mum's brain, that's where you're going to go. It's just because these changes in development and, level of brain development, and then the distraction that's coming in. In fact, how they want to feed is to have a first breast, and then they want to have a play, and they want to interact with mum and dad. And then once they're getting tired again, they're quite happily pop on the other breast and finish off before a nice nap or a sleep.
But everybody's trying to follow the rule of feed, play, sleep.
Yes.
Aren't they? So often
exactly.
people say, oh, but we're trying to do feed, play, sleep. Good
I
luck
know.
with that.
How many times do we say, please, please, it's feed, play, feed,
sleep. Or feed, play, feed, play a bit more, feed a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what these hormones are for. This is what this lovely milk has loads of hormones in it to help them go to sleep. So why would you ever not let them feed to sleep?
And especially at that age, people often say, oh, but we need to get them into good habits. We need them to start falling asleep, not feeding. And I think, gosh, it's hard enough, isn't it? Parenting a baby of this age, probably the most difficult season of this first year.
Exactly. It's unrealistic goals, isn't it? It's unrealistic to what the babies actually can do. And when there's so much going on for them, if you think about there's so much going on in those little brains, they actually need the feeding to calm them down at this stage. They actually need those hormones to switch that little brain off a little bit. So when we don't try and do that and we put them down awake, it's that they're just going to be very unhappy and stay awake
or
even
panic
longer.
even. Some of them just panic, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's a thing that we repeat often. People worry that if they do that now, they're going to be stuck with it till the child's 7 or something.
Yeah.
There's a time and a season for everything, though, isn't there?
I always remember telling my daughters, you can't run before you can walk. So even though we often, when we're young and we're desperate to do the next thing or get to the goal and everything, but the thing is, it's a process, isn't it? We can't run before we can walk. We've actually got to go through this learning stage, and then we will finally get to where we need to go. So it's the same with sleep or feeding. We can't rush it. Each individual mum and baby will have all the same journey, but it will be different in these different phases.
And there's such high expectations on women to get back to their old life as well. So beyond that first 3 months, I feel like we see a lot of mums who are just eager to reclaim their old lives.
Yes.
Almost like they can see the dust building up in the house, or they want to get back to, more social activities. And they look around them and they feel like everybody else's baby is able to just go down in the cot and not bother them for 2 hours. And then they've got 2 hours to themselves to shower, wash hair, do your nails, cook some food, all of the things. When in reality, I don't think it's quite that perfect for many families, is it? But what you see online is different.
Yes, I think a lot of mums report that, don't they, when they've been to a mother's group. And then they say to us, why isn't our baby doing what everybody says that theirs are doing in the mother's group? But really, when we break it down, are they all doing that? I sometimes wonder, because often they're all doing the same sort of thing, and that nothing is ever perfect, but that is the way.
And certainly from a sleep perspective, the way I explain that to lots of families is there's a broad average of what babies of different ages will sleep around 24 hours. And actually, if we took a group of kids and looked at their average sleep, totals in that time. It would probably be
Mm.
roughly the same. But of course,
Yeah.
we're going to have some children who just go out for the count all night long. I
Mm.
don't know if you ever had any of those. I didn't. Or you've got the ones who like to have long day sleeps and then are up more in the night feeding.
Yeah.
So you can't have both. You can't have these really long day nappers and
Correct.
then children that sleep 12 hours long at night time. It's not impossible, but
Yeah.
it's not the norm.
I think, one of the things that we often hear, isn't it, that it's really important for babies and their brain development to get enough sleep. Do you not think that's a big problem? Because that tends to stick in their heads. And so they're
Yeah.
focusing on trying to get these babies to have as much sleep as possible, thinking that if they don't, then it's going to affect their brain development. When in the actual fact, their poor little brains, they've got so much going on and they need to have that. That's part of growing.
Yeah.
And they don't need to be put to bed all the time, especially once they get to 3 months, because they're starting to wake up to the world and learn and be curious and
And they've got
things.
more stamina and their sleep needs are reducing by that point as well. Their
Exactly.
communications are changing as well. We talk about that a lot too, don't we?
We
They
do.
don't they don't just need a nappy change of feed or sleep anymore. They might need a change of scenery or a change of toy or a change of company. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different feelings and expressions going on at
And
this
all
age.
that, the sounds, they're starting to make sounds, aren't they? They're starting to talk with their hands and their legs. There's just so much going on. So that in actual fact, it's almost like you want to try and put a dimmer switch on them if you're trying to make them sleep too much, where they're
That's
shutting,
right. We're trying to
you
dim
know?
their sparkle.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think I always try to get people to get excited about this age because for the babies it is so exciting, isn't it?
It's so exciting. And then that's sort of, if you think about it, I mean, we'll probably talk a bit more about 5 to 6 months next time, but around this time, it basically it increases, doesn't it? Because the more they're physically able to do, then the more excited they get. And often they're practicing these physical things even at night, aren't they, in their sleep?
Yeah, yeah. And being able to suddenly start to reach and grab things as well.
Yeah.
That's an exciting thing. They
So
really find their mouths. They're all
that's a
hands,
good
aren't they?
point, Katie, because I often say, the grip comes, doesn't it, about 3 months. So it's really a good time if baby hasn't been gripping or holding much before, then you can start, sort of encourage giving toys to them that they can hold. And rather than just being on the floor, whatever, you can actually start giving them toys that they can hold and grab and bring to their faces.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, those are all sort of like a preparatory thing for when they're starting solids. All
You
these.
read my mind. I was going to ask you about that next.
There you go. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
from 5 months, particularly, we talk about, don't we, a lot about what can they do? Obviously, they're not ready for solids, or some might be coming to be
Mm,
ready for solids because remember, everybody's an individual and it depends on the size that they even start with and their feeding journey. But to be honest with you, you've got that. We don't want to go like anything else, like potty training. We don't want to go straight into having solids without doing a little bit of preparation with it.
mm,
Looking at their core strengths. So how can we improve core strength? We'd like to think that babies have had access to tummy time from early on.
mm,
It's not that you have to wait till 6 weeks to do it. We really want you to very gently build it up as you go. They get 50% more oxygen, deepens their breathing rhythm, strengthens their back and neck. And in doing so, they're also increasing their core strength. So all these
mm.
things should be building up in those first few months so that when they actually get to 5 months, they've got some of that core strength. They might be
Mm.
able to start sitting in a high chair. That's not about them eating, but it's part of them being in that social setting and
Yeah.
learning and watching and role modeling what parents are doing, watching that food on the fork into the
Mm.
mouth,
Even
actually
if they
playing with
just
them.
have like a spoon, is that what you're going to say?
I was just going to say, having
Yeah.
like a little spoon to
Spoon or a
to
teether or just something to mimic what they're seeing.
see. There's so many ways that you can prepare them, and the sippy cup. Really from 4 months, once they've got that grip again, they can actually, it's not that they're going to drink a lot of stuff, but it's actually the action of bringing it to their mouth. All those sort of things can prepare and then make starting solids or whether it's baby led or purees or a bit of both, it always helps to have that preparation to go, on first.
Yeah.
Katie, I wondered if you could give us some ideas about, that these babies that you're not quite ready for solids and they're 5 months plus, and often there's a disruption in sleep then as well.
Mm.
Feeding needs are changing, but also sleep, and sometimes that can make a big difference, can't it, to
Yeah,
how mum
yeah.
and babies cope? Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, as children are getting to this age, their calorie needs are increasing, but they're not quite ready for solids, like you say. But around this time, probably closer to the 6 months, is when parents are told that their children should be
Mm,
sleeping through. What is that with these health
mm,
professionals out there that say, oh, 6 months, they can manage through the night now?
mm,
Says who? Obviously, I'm not just going to send them away going, well, you've just got to wait. There's always some things that we can do
mm,
to help optimize the chances of them doing longer blocks at night. And what that often comes down to is accepting the possibility that their child actually needs a bit less sleep now, and that they can start to manage longer stretches of awake time between their naps, before bed. And there's so much noise out there about overtiredness, isn't there? That everybody thinks
mm,
it's going to be put them to bed earlier, make them
mm.
have shorter gaps between their naps. They're protesting sleep because they're overtired.
Yeah,
Now, the
so many you
most,
see, don't you, that are going to bed at 6:30 or 7:30. It's just a bit early, isn't it, at this age?
well, it means then that they're in bed
Mm,
often for 12 hours or more.
mhm,
Again, it's what they're told,
mm,
especially on apps and the downloadable, printable things that tell you what your baby should be doing. Now, obviously, it's possible that some children might need 12 hours at night, but like I said before, it's more of a rarity. It does fall within kind of a global average, if you like, but it's on the higher end of average. And it seems to be that a lot of these programs go, well, what's the range? Oh, let's look at the top number because that looks most appealing. That will probably sell more programs if we tell everybody it's going to do that.
mm,
And of course, for some it will work, and then for others, they're left feeling like, well, what's wrong with me or what's wrong with my baby because it
mm,
hasn't done what it says on the tin. So
mm,
often at this age, the tips that I tend to give parents are be curious. This is a time of new discoveries, excitement. Be curious about what your baby's telling you rather than the temptation to try and be in control. How many mums do we see that say, I think we just need a routine now. We need to get on a routine, we need to get this in under control, and they will start to sleep better. That's
mm.
often not the route, is it, to finding the
No.
solution to the frequency of overnight wakes. So getting curious about how much time awake the child needs between sleeps, challenging those tired signs. So when they see rubbing eyes and yawning, could that be a sign of other dysregulation too? I need another feed because I was not really paying attention before.
Mm,
Or I need a change of scenery. What's that over there? Where's my brother gone? When's dad
yeah.
coming home? All of that kind of curiosity for new experiences and information.
Mm,
And when we start to invite that and not get so worried about looking at the clock and thinking, oh my gosh, it's past 9 a.m. and the program says it's got to be down by 9 a.m. If that fails, then our day is lost. We'll just have to draw a line through it and start again tomorrow.
mm.
Just let go of the preconceived ideas. Be curious about what your child wants. If they're showing signs that they're tired, don't just leap on that and assume that, okay, we've got to get them down now, they'll turn into a pumpkin. Okay, that might be a tired sign, but let's go for a little spin around the garden first and see if it was
Yeah.
really that or was it a bit of boredom creeping in.
I think this is an age where there's a lot of boredom and a bit of frustration. So that's important to be aware of that, and changing things up and doing something different often is enough. Otherwise, they're not going to nap properly because they
Yeah,
might have a cat nap, but they're not really tired enough, are they? And you
yeah.
were going to tell us about the difference in the size of the babies as well, because that makes a difference, doesn't it?
Well, it can do. In my experience, it seems to, though I haven't found any research to back up my theory yet. But very often, bigger babies, not all, but very often, bigger babies show greater stamina, almost like they're an older child. in the same way that they might have more advanced skills than their smaller peers. So that's
Yeah.
something to factor in as well, especially for those parents who are trying to follow what it says on the app or says in the program for the baby that they've got of that age. I find that that's quite restrictive.
Mm. Mm.
But generally, as the
Yeah.
months pass, most parents will start to know, okay, if I got a high sleep needs baby, if I got a low sleep needs
Mm.
baby, are they pretty much average? Because we can't stop comparing ourselves to others, can we?
Yeah.
But I think that
Yeah.
the point to remember is if your baby is thriving and happy and gaining weight and loving life, it doesn't really matter how many hours of sleep they're getting, does it? It's irrelevant, really, when you look at the numbers. If they're happy, then
No.
that's a sign that
And,
you're doing a
and if
great
they're
job.
tired, they'll sleep, won't they? Usually.
They will. If they're so there's two reasons that children don't fall asleep. One is that they're not tired. That's the most obvious one.
Yeah.
And the other is that they're dysregulated.
Mm.
Now, I know there'll be people listening to this jumping up and down going, well, overtiredness, that prevents sleep. No, it doesn't. It doesn't prevent sleep. That's not how sleep biology works. What it can do, though, is make very sensitive children quite dysregulated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
none of us can fall asleep when we're feeling rattled. We need to be relaxed. We need to feel safe, emotionally safe, and able to surrender to that process that requires a release of control.
And also pain as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because,
good point.
from 3 to 5 months, which is the age we're talking about, teething
Yeah,
starts.
so another cause of dysregulation, if there's something that they're in pain
Yeah.
for and we haven't identified that.
Yeah. And what I found really interesting, and I think I heard that from you, is that I didn't realize the cortisol levels drop at night. And
They
it's the
do.
cortisol in our bodies that help us, don't experience the inflammation. So,
Mm.
we don't get so much discomfort. But if that's going to actually drop at night, then their pain levels will be more at night,
Yeah,
won't they?
there's a lot of chatter about cortisol with sleep. Cortisol has many functions in the body
Mm.
across the day, one of which is us waking up in the morning. Our cortisol levels have to rise for us to wake up and go, oh, this morning, ready to kickstart the day.
Mm.
And also, it drops, like you say, before bedtime to make way for the effects of melatonin, which starts to rise as the sun goes down. But cortisol is a natural painkiller. So in the day, it's really easy to be distracted from minor discomfort. But then in the
Mm.
evening, the feeling when you've got a cold or a sore throat, and the cough comes
Well,
back or the sore throat comes back at about 7 or 8 o'clock. That's
mm.
the that's
Mm.
the chemical reason for what's happening there and why you need the Panadol or whatever as you're going to bed. So
So
yes,
what are we going to talk about next time?
for a bit older babies
Mm.
maybe.
I think, yeah, maybe around the 6 to 9 months age group next
Yeah,
time.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the chat. I look forward to many more. So stay tuned, peeps, if you enjoyed this chatter. We'll be back.
We will be back. See you then.
See ya.
Bye.